In this video, I'm going to go through all the minerals that exist positively in our diet and have some sort of benefit on the body, whether it is a macro mineral or a trace mineral and only needed in very, very tiny amounts, but still is necessary and has some kind of benefit on the body. I'm not going to be pushing any pills or supplements for you to use and stuff like that. I'm just going to go through a quick explanation of each of the things the minerals do. While there are loads of things, I'm not going to go into too much detail. There'll probably be videos that I do in the future where I go into a lot of detail on all the sort of mechanisms that these things do on the body. Now I'm going to start with the macro minerals, and the first one is calcium. Now calcium, when it's inside of the body, it is an ion and it takes the form of a 2+ charge. It's used inside of nerves. You may have heard that nerves and stuff have like electrical impulses, which you probably would have thought was a bit weird considering humans don't conduct electricity, but it is these charged ions like calcium and sodium and chlorine and all that sort of stuff that are the sort of charges that exist inside of the electrical impulses. The influx of these ions like calcium and sodium through membranes in nerve cells causes some sort of potential difference, which means this impulse can carry along and go through all these different nerve cells. Calcium, as its sort of main media stereotypical use is, or its benefit is it's used to make strong bones, and it's found regularly inside of bone structure. And it's also quite a common nutrient inside of milk, which is why milk is sort of used generically to give people strong bones. Now, a bit of a side tangent and a weird story on supplements. I read something that said that some calcium supplements that exist could be toxic, which in a weird sort of way, although I don't believe everything that I see on the internet, doesn't surprise me. I prefer to get nutrients and stuff from actual food because they're often binded to chemicals that mean that they're well absorbed and stuff instead of just being in powder form. But when these nutrients are binded to an apple or an orange or chemicals inside of that, etc., it's going to be more easily absorbed and it's going to help them be utilized in the body, and it's going to overall be a lot better. Now, the second macro mineral is sodium, which is most commonly in the diet found as salt. But salt, weirdly, is basically one of the only places you can find sodium. It's not common in milk or anything like that. It's found in trace amounts in fruits and other foods and stuff, but it's more commonly found inside of processed foods that contain salt and just normal table salt that you'd put as a seasoning on food. Now, sodium, just like calcium, is used inside of nerve cells to regulate impulses. Electrical signals can be passed through the body. Now, the third macro mineral is magnesium, and magnesium is very useful for relaxation. It binds to receptors in the brain that make it relax more easily. Now, the fourth macro mineral is potassium. Potassium, just like calcium and sodium, help regulate nerve impulses and signals. It can also help take waste in and out of cells. It can help drive nutrients into cells and take waste out of cells. It doesn't, the atom itself, potassium, doesn't do that, but it helps in that process. It's involved some way through enzymes, transport chemicals and stuff in that process, and without it, it wouldn't happen. Now, one way you can get potassium pretty easily is to just eat a lot of bananas. Now, the fifth macro mineral is iron. Iron is used inside of hemoglobin, and oxygen will bind to the iron inside of this hemoglobin, which will be then taken all around your body into muscle cells and into just cells in general to be able to be used during respiration. At the end of the oxidative phosphorylation electron transport chain, it's sort of the electron dump. It's where things are dumped, and without it, a whole kind of weird build-up would happen in your body that just wouldn't be good for you whatsoever. Now, the sixth macro mineral is chlorine. Chlorine, just like sodium, is found in salt, and it's actually needed a lot in the diet despite it not really being existing that much inside of the whole nutritional packages, supplements and stuff, because it is so common inside of the diet. It is found in salt, so it's not going to be a massive problem, unlike something such as lead, if you have a bit too much of it. But chlorine, it can help with nerve impulses just as sodium does, and it's also used to make stomach acid, hydrochloric acid, because it contains chlorine. Now, zinc, I'm not really sure if it's a macro mineral or a micro mineral. Some sources said it was a micro, some sources said it was a macro, but I'm going to go with it being a macro mineral because it is so important in so many enzymatic reactions. Zinc is involved in so many. It's absolutely insane. It's probably involved in like around maybe even more than 1,000 enzymatic reactions inside of the body, and you really could not exist without it. It's also very useful for boosting the immune system. Now, the first trace mineral that you need is actually nickel, and this has an upper limit of 1 milligram per day because it only has one use in the body. It is used inside of the active site of the enzyme carbon monoxide dehydrogenase, which is an enzyme that I'd never heard of before doing research and stuff for this video, but that's its one and only use, and it can be very toxic if ingested in too high of a quantity. Now, both chromium and vanadium are microminerals that are used to sort of enhance insulin and balance insulin levels and stuff like that. Now, there was a bit of debate that I saw on an article about chromium actually being an essential nutrient, because it wasn't something that you needed to help balance and enhance insulin, but it was something that actually made it better, but it was still sort of good enough without it in a weird sort of way. And there wasn't anything on vanadium, but it is a micromineral that exists that can help enhance insulin, but it's best to maybe not get fooled by supplements that are saying this could be the next weight loss thing and all that sort of stuff, because insulin is very heavily tied to weight loss as well. Now, the fourth trace mineral is manganese. Manganese is involved very heavily in the immune system, and it works in conjunction with vitamin C, ascorbic acid, which is also very important for the immune system as well. It helps in the building up of sex hormones, and it can help with building up blood and bones and loads of other stuff, connective tissue as well. Now, the fifth trace mineral that you need is molybdenum, and molybdenum is used in the active site of 4 enzymes, which are used to break down purines, alcohol, proteins, and sulfites. Sulfites being a very toxic thing for the body and will be quickly turned to sulfate, which can be readily excreted and isn't something that is as toxic. Now, another trace mineral is boron, which has only really been realised to actually be a useful thing for you to have in your diet somewhat recently, maybe in the last 20 years or so. It's good for your bones. I think it was something to do with osteoblasts and osteoclasts. Not sure exactly what those two things are. I didn't really go too deep into my research into those sort of things, but it's good for just having strong bones in general, and there's probably not really something that you're going to need supplements on or whatever, because it is found inside of the diet. There's not really such thing as a boron rich food, which you're going to need to eat if you want to get your daily boron intake in. These trace minerals are often you're able to adequately obtain a certain amount a day just through a general diet, even things like fast food and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, if you're going to eat junk food all day, no proper meals, then it's going to become a bit of an issue. But if you're having like a pretty normal diet, things like this and most of the trace minerals are just not going to be a problem to you whatsoever. Now, the sixth trace mineral is silicon. Silicon is useful in bones and skin, and it can help sort of reduce aging in these parts of your body. The seventh trace mineral is iodine. Iodine is involved in thyroxine, the hormone thyroxine. If I put an image up on screen, I'm pretty sure it contains an iodine somewhere in its sort of structure. But thyroxine is used to control metabolism, the rate of metabolism, and you would have probably seen in places where iodine is not very common inside the diet, they have like a very big lump on the neck from just the lack of iodine, and that does stuff to your thyroid hormone. Now, another trace mineral that is very important is selenium. Selenium is an antioxidant, and antioxidants are things that disarm free radicals, which are the things that essentially make you age. So selenium can be a very useful thing, and because it's not the most common thing inside the diet, it's probably the most likely thing I would ever take a supplement on. Now, the final trace mineral is copper, and copper is used to make blood vessels and help produce energy. The trouble is that copper competes with zinc, so if you're ever going to take a copper supplement, make sure that it has around 10 times the amount of zinc in it than it actually does copper, which seems counterproductive, and I guess you're getting double the bargain because you're also getting a zinc supplement technically as well. But copper, if it's ingested in far too much, can be incredibly toxic and won't end well. Now, a bit of a word on sulfur and phosphorus, two very common elements that occur inside of biochemistry. It's not really such a thing as a mineral for sulfur and phosphorus, because they're common inside of foods that we eat and compounds rather than minerals themselves. Things like amino acids, cysteine and methionine contain sulfur. You've got phosphates and stuff that contain phosphorus. It's not really a mineral as such, and they're very common inside the body, and there's going to be no worry for you if you have a phosphorus deficiency, because if you had a phosphorus deficiency, guess what? No ATP and no life. But with that, I recommend subscribing, because I love this community of young tribal people who are willing to improve themselves. So much more than you already have, and good luck.